Hello, this is Todd Luck, and because you can never have too many characters with the power of Grayskull, this is a review of a comic that not only follows up on the CGI Netflix series of Masters of the Universe that we've gotten in recent years, but also the DC Comics run of Masters of the Universe from a few years back. This is a review of Masters of the Universe Masterverse issue 4 from Dark Horse Comics. This is the final issue in a 4-issue miniseries. It's available right now at your local comic shops. You can read it digitally on Comixology, and there will be a trade paperback coming. All right, so let's start with the cover. And so the main cover features the versions of Masters of the Universe found in the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe CGI cartoon on Netflix. It ran for 3 seasons. It was aimed at younger kids. And in my reviews, I said I didn't necessarily care for the design work for the Masters on this particular series, but I cannot argue with how good this cover looks. I mean, the colors are absolutely gorgeous. It's well composed. It shows off each character rather well, and they're all rendered nicely. And so regardless of what you think about that series, this is a nice cover. And so each issue has this framing story that runs throughout the series, where Zodak is unconvinced that Adam should be the most powerful man in the universe and become He-Man, and the Sorceress is trying to convince him by showing him what different versions of Adam do with the power of Grayskull. And so previous issues of this miniseries have shown us new versions of Masters of the Universe, realities that only exist for the short story it's telling us. And this is the first time we've seen it follow up on existing versions of these characters. And so this is trying to translate the CGI work from the cartoon into what is a comic book. And I think they do a pretty admirable job, though some of the storytelling could be stronger. Like, this is a mystifyingly far shot that barely gives us an idea what these heroes look like on what should have been an establishing shot for these characters. But overall, I think this is an admirable effort, and the story here is quite clever and fits in with the show really well. And, for fans of that show, I think they're going to get a kick out of seeing, one more adventure with these characters. And so one thing that this issue won't do is tell you what happened after season 3. This is set earlier in the series where they're fighting Skeletor. And so the series hasn't been renewed. And so obviously 9 pages would not be enough to tell you what would have happened in the season 4. But if you want to know that, you can pick up The Art of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe based on the CGI series. And there's a whole section in the back that will tell you and show you what would have happened in season 4. And if you're looking for further adventures of these characters, there is a graphic novel by Scholastic. And there's also a series of young reader books telling untold stories from the series, including one with Mossman, who had a figure made but never appeared in the actual cartoon. All right, and now for the second story. As you can see, the artwork is quite nice. This follows up on the very end of the DC Comics run that we got in recent years of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And so this is involving that version of He-Man and this group called the He-Force, which all have their own power swords and all are basically He-Man. The story involves the Mega Beast, which is a version of one of my favorite Masters of the Universe villains, Modulok, the Beast of 1,000 Bodies. And in the classics canon and the Filmation cartoon, he used to be this scientist called Galen Nycroft, who turned himself into this hideous creature that could change shapes. And in the toys, the Mega Beast is actually described as the form that he takes when Modulok combines with a robot called Modubot. But in this comic, we actually play with the idea of what happens when you combine multiple Moduloks, which is also really cool, as we see in this little pamphlet that was included with the figure back in the day. And I absolutely adore this story. And not only does it involve Modulok, but it also seems to be paying tribute to a very memorable plot line from the 80s Transformer cartoon. If you watch that cartoon all the way through and you read this story, you're going to know what I'm talking about. The only thing is I do wish it was longer. This deserved an entire miniseries and not just half of an issue. And the He-Force itself is also really cool, and I think illustrates why Tim Seeley is perfect for writing Masters of the Universe. The He-Force first appeared in He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse, issue 6, which was the last issue that DC put out of He-Man. And so at the end of their ongoing He-Man series, they had He-Man basically forging a power sword, and he was going to share the power of Grayskull with others. And so I'm going to use this shot from He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse 6 to talk about the He-Force, because I think this is a better establishing shot. But anyway, we've got He-Man as he appeared in the end of the DC Comics series, which had a kind of a different versions of Masters of the Universe. And then we have Platino, who is a tribute to the Argentinian line Forza T. We have Zack the He-Cat. This is obviously Battle Cat as He-Man, which is awesome. He-Soul, which is a tribute to Sunman, who was a black character who was very similar to He-Man and is actually now part of the line, which is kind of awesome. And this is Hira, and I believe she's based on early She-Ra concept art. And then here in the upper left corner, we have a widget with the power of Grayskull called Hero, and widgets were these cute little guys from the Filmation cartoon. And so it's kind of awesome to give them the power of Grayskull. And then in the bottom left corner, we have Valiant Tina in the battle armor costume, and she is a tribute to Tim Seeley's daughter. And so I think this is just a really neat concept. Even if you don't get the references, these are just cool looking characters. I'd love to have them as action figures. And I think it's just a really neat concept to have a team of He-Men. And I think that it really does illustrate why Tim Seeley is just so perfect for Masters of the Universe. It's not just his knowledge of the franchise, but just his love for it. And I think it really comes through in his storytelling. I'd love to see Tim Seeley get a shot at writing an ongoing Masters of the Universe series that just explores a regular version of Masters of the Universe and all the characters and the world of Eternia and all that stuff. But we don't know what's happening next with the comics, right? This is the last issue, but I'm sure there will be other Masters of the Universe comics, and I'll certainly review them when it happens. And so the journey never ends on Eternia. And so instead of goodbye, they say good journey. And so like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, good journey.